Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local.
So there were a number of things that were interesting this week to me. One of which, I'm not going to talk about, is the Facebook Workrooms metaverse virtual reality thing. I think that's worth some discussion at some point, but not today. What I'm going to talk about instead was an interesting survey that CallRail published pretty recently. I don't know if it was this week, but it's a recent survey where they polled 600 U.S. small businesses, and they asked them about a bunch of digital marketing questions, but they were specifically getting at who's doing your marketing. Is it somebody in-house? Is it you, a dedicated employee in-house versus you? Is it an agency? And there were some pretty interesting findings. I mean, much of it will come as no surprise, but some of it was worth talking about. Now, interestingly, only 14% of these folks were using any kind of external resource, an agency or consultant. Most of them either had an in-house dedicated person, 36%, and the rest of them were just trying to do marketing on their own, spending about 20 hours a week doing that. What I found, three things that were particularly interesting. I think it was only 49% of them had a website. It was pretty close to half, but half of these respondents.
Same number as in 2007.
Right, precisely. That was what was so striking. And these were not just tiny. These were not just solopreneurs or small firms. These were some of these, they didn't give the headcount segmentation, but some of these were 200-person businesses. But only half of them said that they had a website, which is kind of an incredible thing. And really consistent with what you just said, David, that this has been pretty standard, over the last year. So it suggests that this is never going to change. We're never going to get to 80%, 90% website adoption. Now, some of those people may be using alternative digital presences, Google My Business, Facebook, or some social media site as a web presence. And it's like,
or a scheduling app, for example. I see that happen a lot of times with a, salon, someone who has their own salon or whatever, right, might have their entire presence be, their booking. And
I think that would if it were framed in that way, I think we would see a bigger number. So I think the 50% number is interesting, but it's not totally reflective of what's going on out in the world. But just a couple of quick other things. The majority, the number one digital marketing method that was used was social media, and that was in the 60s, I think, that in terms of the percentage. I don't have the specific number in front of me, but that was the number one method for marketing online that people were using. Incredibly, only 15% were using local SEO or SEO, which I just find to be an astonishing number. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that those two things are almost the same thing that reflects this tremendous misunderstanding about how to have visibility and Google's reliance, almost existential need for businesses to have websites, for them to do what they do, which is surface accurate information. And that those two numbers, that only 50% are using SEO and only 50% have real websites, just reflects this total misunderstanding about how people are found on the internet. And it also, though, is a threat to Google. One asks, why wouldn't they, when you claim your business, why wouldn't they just create the Google My Business website for you just as default setting, so that they would at least have, I guess because they already have access to all that data, maybe? I don't know. But
I mean, every survey has to be taken with a grain of salt, right? Any individual survey can't be seen as a reflection of truth, but they're directional. But the fact that this number is so low, 15%, is really astonishing. And what it says to me is that people are not extrapolating from their own experience, right? Everybody's using Google, right, as a search engine and to look up local information, but yet they're not translating that experience into their own understanding of how to market.
Google has never been good, though, about communicating how much reliance they put on an independent website to rank your business and for visibility of your business, right? It's only it's not known broadly in small businesses that that's how it works.
Yes, I think that that's a key point, is that they don't expose sort of the how of all of this. The other thing that I would say about this survey that was really interesting is that a lot of the small business aggregators, web hosting platforms, and traditional media companies that have turned into agencies, equivalent of agencies, have tried over the years to deliver marketing services to businesses, small businesses at scale. And what this survey indicated, and I'll just read a couple of these points, is that these businesses really just didn't want exclusive focus on leads, on lead gen. In fact, that was sort of lower down the list. What they wanted was the top three things they wanted help with from an external provider: helping us improve customer service, recommending new technology to help grow our business, improving workflows between marketing and sales teams, sort of internal operational improvements, and the number 4 was helping us refine our value proposition, which is sort of a broader brand and messaging, sort of a PR traditional communications function. And it's only when you get below that you start to get into these traditional marketing needs. And so there's a big gap between that wish list and what's being provided by a lot of these big sort of firms that are catering to small businesses from a digital marketing perspective.
And a lot of small firms providing that service too.
Yeah. So
and I was just going to say, I think it bodes well for our friend Aaron Weike's new business, Leadferno, that helping with customer service is kind of what Leadferno's bread and butter could be for the agencies that adopt it as a solution. So I think that's kudos to Aaron for sort of seeing this in the market before these kinds of studies came out. And I think, Mike, the other 2 points about sort of recommending new technology and improving workflows, you and I have been talking about these exact topics for several years, whether it was our Street Fight column or the Cinda conference in Valencia. It's just being able to identify technologies that play well with each other and are good long-term investments. I see as the key value of a consulting firm, digital consulting firm. And it's hard when you are a sort of horizontal media player not to just sell what you're offering. And so I think it's just a very difficult business proposition as opposed to really developing expertise in a domain and recommending the best fit, and being that sort of trusted advisor to an SMB as opposed to just selling your hammer for the nails.
There's an inherent conflict of interest that you are pointing out between somebody who's essentially become a technology vendor or an aggregator of third-party technologies, which are often exclusive, and being a trusted advisor. Everybody wants to position themselves as a trusted advisor, but you can't do that if you're just pushing your own solution to the market. And people sort of smell that, they get that, and there's a lot of distrust, mistrust of some of these companies that are just sort of coming at small businesses with a sales proposition, I think.
So, I've dealt with a lot of agencies through GatherUp where we attempted to take this approach where they could use GatherUp to help their businesses improve. That was the fundamental philosophy of GatherUp. And most of them just said, how do we get more reviews? It's that the agencies and the owners of these agencies, top to bottom, do not take what, John Jantz preaches, which is a strategic view of the relationship with your customer, it's always a better position because it's hard to compete. You're not going to lose somebody on price. You're going to lose somebody on service, and it's a much better position to be, but hard for agencies who do not have a strategic view of the world to take that in their relationships with their customers, big or small.
Well, and on that point about price, I think also in this survey there was a mention that people were willing to pay more for these strategic advisory services, that they would be willing to invest more money in that.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.